and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Israeli jets have continued to pummel the Gaza Strip, flattening residential buildings and raising the death toll to at least 228. Meanwhile, a senior Hamas official has predicted a ceasefire within days while declaring victory against Israel. However, after a phone call with U.S. President Joe Biden, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he is determined to continue bombing Gaza until Tel Aviv's aim is met. Washington has also refused to support a UN Security Council resolution proposed by France for a ceasefire in Gaza. Meanwhile, Pakistan says it is regrettable that the UN Security Council has been prevented from acting to halt Israel's aggression in Palestine. Speaking at the Pakistani High Commission in New York, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this has further demoted the credibility of the Security Council and is a bolt on the reputation of those who champion human rights and the rule of law. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly is meeting today over the worsening situation in Palestine. The Taliban have claimed to seize a key district in Afghanistan's eastern Laghman province. In a statement, a Taliban spokesperson said the government soldiers have escaped from all defense posts in the Daulat Shah district. This development comes after 6 months-long siege of the district by the Taliban. Beijing says a U.S. warship has violated its territorial waters near the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea. In a statement, the Chinese military said its ships and aircraft followed the U.S. vessel. However, the U.S. Navy argued that USS Curtis Wilbur was conducting a freedom of navigation operation. India has registered over 3,800 COVID-19 deaths and more than 276,000 infections overnight. In Pakistan, 131 people lost their lives to the virus, while more than 4,200 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.4 million lives and infected over 164 million people so far. And in sports, Pakistan Cricket Board says all remaining 20 matches of Pakistan Super League's 6th edition will be played in Abu Dhabi. In a statement, the board said the UAE has given approval to hold the remaining part of the PSL in its capital. The tournament was postponed in March due to rising COVID-19 cases among the players and officials. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Israeli jets continue to pummel the Gaza Strip, flattening residential buildings and raising the death toll to at least 230. The Gaza Health Ministry said 65 children and 38 women are among those killed in the Israeli aggression. More in this report.
In the face of global condemnations and calls for an end to Israeli aggression on Palestine, its forces carried out more than 100 airstrikes on Gaza just a few hours into the 11th day of the non-stop bombing. Palestinian officials say the aerial raids have worsened the Strip's already dire humanitarian situation. The occupying regime's ground forces are also making the lives a living hell for Palestinians in other territories. In the West Bank, Israeli troops shot dead a Palestinian woman, increasing the fatalities toll there to at least 21 since May 10th. The troops have also injured and arrested a number of Palestinian protesters across the West Bank. Meanwhile, after a phone call with U.S. President Joe Biden, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he is determined to continue bombing Gaza.
כפי שאמרתי היום לשגרירים שנאספו כאן,
I very much appreciate the support of these governments. I especially appreciate the support of our friend US President Joe Biden. For the state of Israel right to self-defense, I am determined to continue this operation until its objective is achieved to restore quiet and security to you, the citizens of Israel.
Meanwhile, the US has refused to support a UN Security Council resolution proposed by France for a ceasefire in Gaza. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he spoke with the Israeli foreign minister about efforts to end the violence. A senior Hamas official, Musa Abu Marzouk, also predicted a ceasefire within days while declaring victory against Israel. Meanwhile, rallies to express solidarity with Palestinians continue in various countries including Tunisia, Lebanon, Yemen, Pakistan, Iran and Kuwait.
We came in solidarity with Palestine and with what is happening to Gazans, and to teach the children the barbaric nature of the Israeli aggression. This is not new neither to us nor to our children, because we lived through the same scenes we are seeing today back in the July War of 2006.
Earlier, US Democrats lawmaker led by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez introduced a bill to block the sale of $375 million in weapons to Israel. Congresswoman said Washington should not be rubber stamping arms transfer to Israel as it deploys US sources to target international media outlets, schools, hospitals, humanitarian missions and civilian sites for the bombing.
Pakistan says it is regrettable that the UN Security Council has been prevented from acting to halt Israel's aggression in Palestine. Speaking at the Pakistani High Commission in New York, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this inaction has further demoted the credibility of the Security Council. Qureshi added it is a bolt on the reputation of those who champion human rights and the rule of law. He said all Muslim countries stand by the Palestinians and will do all they can to mobilize humanitarian aid for these oppressed people. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly is meeting today over the worsening situation in Palestine. We're taking you live to Islamabad's Foreign Office, where the spokesperson is speaking.
Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi is currently in New York to participate in the UN General Assembly meeting on the Palestine issue today. We hope the special meeting of the UN General Assembly will help send a strong message on behalf of the OIC to the international community to help end the Israeli aggression and to take concrete steps to find a solution to the Palestinian issue. On his way to New York, the foreign minister visited Turkey and called on the president of Turkey. The foreign minister also met with his Turkish counterpart. During these meetings, the foreign minister discussed the entire gamut of bilateral and regional issues, including the ongoing crisis in the occupied Palestinian territories and Pakistan's diplomatic efforts in this regard, Pakistan-Turkey bilateral relations, rising Islamophobia, Pakistan's role in the Afghan peace process, and the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. President Erdogan particularly appreciated Pakistan's diplomatic efforts and its steadfast support for the Palestinian people. Prime Minister Imran Khan had a telephone conversation with the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang today. During the call, 70th anniversary of establishment of Pakistan-China diplomatic ties, bilateral relations, and vaccine cooperation between the two countries were discussed. The Prime Minister congratulated Premier Li and the Chinese leadership for successful landing of the Chinese spacecraft on Mars, which showed rising technological prowess of China. Prime Minister Imran Khan emphasized that with collective and tireless efforts over the years, Pakistan and China had transformed their relationship into an all-weather strategic cooperative partnership. The Prime Minister highlighted Pakistan-China cooperation in fighting COVID-19 and deeply appreciated China's continued support to Pakistan in supply of COVID-19 vaccine. The second round of Pakistan-Thailand bilateral political consultations was held virtually. Foreign Secretary Suhail Mahmood, and Permanent Secretary of Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs led their respective delegations at the meeting. Both sides reviewed the bilateral relations in all areas of cooperation, including political, defense, security, economic, trade, and investment. They also discussed the regional situation, including the efforts by Pakistan to promote peace and reconciliation in Afghanistan and the imperative of resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. The Foreign Secretary reiterated Pakistan's desire for full dialogue partnership with ASEAN and thanked Thailand for its consistent support to Pakistan in this regard. Pakistan strongly condemns the despicable act of demolition of 100-year-old Gharib Nawaz Masjid in Uttar Pradesh, India, with the complicity of the local authorities. This reprehensible act echoes the demolition of the centuries-old Babri Masjid in Ayodhya in 1992 at the hands of radical Hindu mob. Pakistan once again urges the Indian government to ensure safety, security, and protection of minorities, particularly Muslims, and their places of worship. India must fulfill its international responsibilities under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other international instruments, including the recommendations of the OIC. We also call upon the international community, the United Nations, and the relevant international organizations to play their role in preserving the Islamic heritage sites and ensure protection of minorities in India. Now coming to the situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We are deeply grieved on the demise of Ashraf Sehrai, who passed away in Indian custody. Ashraf Sehrai was the senior leader of the All Parties Hurriyat Conference and chairman of the Tehreek-e-Hurriyat Jammu and Kashmir. He was arrested last year on the trumped-up charges under the Draconian Public Safety Act in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Sehrai remained incarcerated in Indian jail under squalid conditions despite serious deterioration of his health and the prevailing COVID-19 crisis. Like him, a number of Kashmiri leaders continue to languish in Indian jails, with many at undisclosed locations throughout India. As the COVID-19 situation in India deteriorates, we also remain deeply concerned over the health and safety of these incarcerated Kashmiri leaders. As you may all know, that 21st May marks the martyrdom anniversaries of prominent Kashmiri leaders Mir Waiz Maulvi Muhammad Farooq, Khwaja Abdul Ghani Lon, and the martyrs of Hawal. It was on 21st May 1990 that Mir Waiz Farooq was shot dead by the agents of Indian agencies at his residence in Srinagar. On the same day, 70 mourners were killed when Indian troops opened indiscriminate fire on his funeral procession in Hawal area of Srinagar. Then on 21st May 2002, Khwaja Abdul Ghani Lon was also martyred by the agents of Indian agencies. These heinous crimes and extrajudicial killings of innocent Kashmiris in fake encounters and staged cordon and search operations continue unabated to date. Most recently, Indian occupation forces extrajudicially killed 2 more innocent Kashmiris in Khanmo area in the outskirts of Srinagar. The impunity granted to the Indian occupation forces has resulted in the systematic targeting of Kashmiri youth through extrajudicial killings, torture in custody, and forced disappearances and incarcerations. Pakistan has consistently emphasized that the gross and systematic violations of human rights being perpetrated by the Indian occupation forces warrant an investigation by a United Nations Commission of Inquiry, as recommended by the OHCHR in its report of 2018 as well as its report of 2019. Pakistan reiterates its call for independent inquiry under international scrutiny to investigate the unabated extrajudicial killings of Kashmiris.
That was the spokesperson of Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry, conducting a weekly media briefing regarding the Palestine issue, in which he stated that Pakistan condemns the attack in Palestine by the Israelis, as well as Pakistan is also trying to raise the awareness of Palestinian people and the Palestine issue on all international platforms. Now, moving on. The Taliban have claimed to seize a key district in Afghanistan's eastern Laghman province. This development comes after a 6-month-long siege of the Daulat Shah district by the Taliban. In a statement, a Taliban spokesperson said the government soldiers have escaped from all defense posts in the district. He added that the group has also seized 2 tanks and a large number of weapons and ammunition. His statement followed the government's claim to have killed 12 Taliban fighters in airstrikes in the hideouts in Laghman. Meanwhile, the Pentagon said the Taliban ramped up attacks in the first quarter of the year. In a report, it said the group is also likely to conduct large-scale attacks on provincial capitals. Beijing says a U.S. warship illegally entered its territorial waters in the South China Sea. In a statement, the Chinese military said the USS Curtis Wilbur breached the waters near Paracel Islands. China's Southern Theater Command said its ships and aircraft followed the U.S. vessel. But the U.S. Navy argued that its warship was conducting a freedom of navigation operation. It said the mission was consistent with international law as the Paracel Islands are a disputed region. The Navy added it challenged unlawful restrictions on passage imposed by China, Taiwan, and Vietnam. Top U.S. and Russian diplomats say the two sides can still find ways to work together despite serious differences. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met on the sidelines of the Arctic Council meeting in Iceland. Lavrov said Russia is ready to sort out issues left over from the previous U.S. administration. The State Department says Blinken raised concern over Russia's continued military deployments in and near Ukraine. He also stressed humanitarian access for the people of Syria. Blinken said the two sides can work together on the pandemic, climate change, Iran, North Korea, and Afghanistan.
If Russia acts aggressively against us, our partners, our allies, we'll respond. And President Biden has demonstrated that in both word and deed, not for purposes of escalation, not to seek conflict, but to defend our interests.
The United States has announced it would waive sanctions on Russia's Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline to Europe. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, Robert Menendez, announced the waiver in a statement. The step was taken after U.S. Senate received a mandatory report from the State Department. The report briefed regarding the entities involved in sanctionable activities by the builders of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Earlier, Germany confirmed that the U.S. is waiving sanctions on the company behind Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline to Europe. Addressing a news conference, German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said the U.S. will also remove sanctions on the chief executive of the company. Russia has offered to help mediate demarcation negotiations after Armenia accused Azerbaijan of a border incursion. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow had proposed setting up a joint Armenian-Azeri commission. According to Russian state media, Yerevan says demarcation work cannot start until Azeri troops leave Armenian territory. But other media reports cite the defense ministry as saying that talks with Azeri officials are underway. Russian President Vladimir Putin held later separate talks with his Azeri counterpart and Armenian acting prime minister. Putin said Moscow will assist Baku and Yerevan in reaching an agreement. The E3 group says tangible progress has been achieved in the 4th session of Iran nuclear talks in Vienna. In a joint statement, the UK, France, and Germany cautioned that success is not guaranteed. The statement read, "Very difficult issues still remain to be resolved." The E3 diplomat said it is critical that Iran let the UN Atomic Agency continue its monitoring and verification work. They urged both sides to find a way forward. The trio said the agency's access will be essential to efforts to restore the 2015 deal, as it cannot be implemented without it. Earlier, Iran's top nuclear negotiator said the last 2 weeks' talks have resulted in the formation of a framework for the agreement. Elsewhere, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif also consulted with the Irish president and foreign minister on the deal in Dublin. Saudi Arabia says Yemen's Houthis are responsible for the stalling of Riyadh's peace initiative to end the war in Yemen. In an interview, Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan said the ball is in Houthis' court to decide on the ceasefire. He said the stability cannot be achieved without addressing the concerns of regional states about Iran's behavior. Earlier, in a meeting between senior Houthi and Iranian officials, Tehran voiced support for peace process in Yemen. The two sides discussed the latest developments and agreed to continue bilateral talks for Yemen's peace. India has registered more than 3,800 COVID-19 deaths and over 276,000 infections overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed 3.4 million lives and infected over 164 million people so far. More in this report.
The toll continues rising in India as the country struggles to contain the pandemic. Along the banks of the Ganges, the stench of death pervades with hundreds of corpses drifting down the river. The stigma and cost of wood leave many families with no choice but to immerse their dead in water. Locals in eastern Patna city are now hesitant to buy and eat fish caught and sold from the Ganges.
The fish in the water is the same water which has coronavirus bodies floating. The situation is very difficult and terrifying. When we go to buy fish, the first thing we do is to ask the origin of the fish. If the fish belongs to ponds or sea fishes, only then we dare to buy.
Over in Africa, the immunization drive continues to face setbacks. With India banning the export of vaccines, Kenya and many other East African countries are running out of stocks. Meanwhile, Malawi has destroyed nearly 20,000 doses of AstraZeneca that expired 18 days after arrival.
A statement came from WHO which said, no, even if it was expired, we still could use it. But as a country, we had already made a decision that we're not going to use any expired vaccine.
Meanwhile, a label change allows the storage of Pfizer's vaccine for up to 1 month at standard freezer temperatures. Dr. Anthony Fauci says the U.S. needs to help mobilize global vaccine production to save millions of lives.
Pakistan has recorded 131 more deaths from the coronavirus in the last 24 hours. Health Ministry said the virus has claimed 19,987 lives in the country so far. It said more than 4,200 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The number of infections has surpassed 890,000, with over 63,000 cases active. Nearly 800,000 cases have recovered from the disease so far. The ministry says more than 51,000 corona tests were conducted on the 19th of May. Moreover, Pakistan has extended its land management policy to restrict the huge influx of inbound pedestrians from the neighboring countries. The policy extension is an attempt to curb the import of COVID-19 from these countries. In Somalia, 4 soldiers, including a senior commander, have been killed in a roadside bomb blast. Police say several others were wounded as militants targeted an army convoy traveling to Johor City. They say reinforcements were being sent to Johor after 10 people were killed in clashes with militias. Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Shabaab group has claimed responsibility for the attack. In the Moroccan border town of Finidic, hundreds of migrants clashed with riot police as they tried to force their way past into Spain's port city of Ceuta. Madrid government has been pressing on with the expulsion of thousands of migrants who had swum or climbed into its North African enclave. This report has more.
The rush of migrants began on Monday when Morocco appeared to loosen border controls. The move was widely interpreted as retaliation for Spain's hosting of a Western Sahara independence leader. Hundreds of young men tried to approach the 20-foot-high border fence before being repelled by Moroccan police. Others had entered the water and began swimming towards Ceuta's breach a few hundred meters away. In some of the most dramatic moments, a teenage boy swam to Quetta's beach using a dozen of empty plastic bottles as flotation devices. Around two-thirds of the roughly 8,000 migrants who made it to the enclave have been expelled.
All my body, and I can't walk anything for I have from a shop. I'll walk 3 days before I will reach here. 3 days today, I don't eat nothing. The people take me here, you beat me, all my body hurt me. You see? No problem. Like God bless.
Spain has deployed troops and armored vehicles to Quetta to patrol the border with Morocco. Soldiers and police used batons to clear migrants from the beach and threw smoke bombs to discourage others from crossing. Spain's far-right leader, Santiago Abascal, said the crisis has caused a serious security concern.
We are facing a real invasion of our national territory, an invasion directed and planned by a neighboring country. An invasion that has brought thousands, mostly male, at conscription age, to our country. Also many youngsters, minors, who have been used as human bulldozer by Morocco.
On the northern tip of Morocco, with a population of 80,000, the enclave has periodically been a magnet for refugees seeking a quick way into Europe. Spain says some 1,500 underage migrants are in a reception centers in Quetta from this and previous waves.
A giant slab of ice has broken off from the frozen edge of Antarctica into the Weddell Sea. According to the European Space Agency, it is the largest iceberg afloat in the world. The newly called berg, designed as the A76 by scientists, was spotted in recent satellite images, having a surface area of over 4,300 square kilometers. It is 170 kilometers long and 25 kilometers wide. It is slightly larger than the Spanish island of Majorca. The rapid warming of the Antarctic ice sheet is causing the melting of ice covers and glacial retreat. A long-lost painting by Russian artist Vasily Kandylsky is up for auction in the German city of Munich. The watercolor artwork bent tips is estimated to be worth some $366,000. Details in this report.
After being missing for 70 years, a 1927 aquarelle painting by Vasily Kandylsky is being auctioned. Auctioneers say bent tips came from the estate of a private collection in Germany's Rhineland region. The 48 by 32.2 centimeters painting will be up for grabs between June 17 and 19 at Munich's Ketterer Kunst Art Auction House.
The story is that it came from a collection and nobody knew that it was a part of the collection. It then came to us and no one has any background on it. We knew it was in the catalogue of work, but only as a small drawing. We knew that it exists, but nobody has seen it for the last 70 years.
Kandylsky did not begin painting until age 30 and taught at Germany's influential Bauhaus school for a decade.
There is information on the back, the title which Kandylsky wrote himself, a number under which he had listed the painting in his workshop. What's very interesting, there is a stamp, a custom stamp, from when the painting was exported to Paris. It is known that Kandylsky moved to Paris and took various objects with him, and this painting was part of that.
Meanwhile, in France, visitors are flocking to see the Mona Lisa as the Louvre Museum reopens to the public after months. France has places of recreation to open again after the third lockdown in little more than a year.
Bitcoin has regained some ground from a 4-month low slide to $30,000 at one point. The unit rebounded to over 8% to touch $40,000 after plunging 14% during the wild fluctuations. China's decision to ban financial firms from servicing crypto transactions served as the main catalyst for the sell-off. However, a tweet from Elon Musk that his company was holding on to its investment in Bitcoin sparked a rebound in prices. The unit has been under pressure for almost a week after tweets from Musk indicating his reversal on Tesla accepting Bitcoin as payment. Most European markets have advanced, dodging concerns over sharp declines in Bitcoin. And the U.S. Federal Reserve hints it could taper the asset purchase program sooner rather than later. The CAC 40 in Paris is leading the gains, adding close to 0.5%. Frankfurt's DAX and the Pan-European Stock 600 have also edged up fractionally, but London's FTSE and Italy's FTSE MIB have dipped marginally. Earlier, Asian stocks also traded mixed amid growing global concerns over inflation. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.